Week 14 is underway with a thud. The Raiders, what a terrible game. And the Rams. You know, actually, to be honest with you, it was an incredibly exciting finish and a 17-16 win for the Baker Mayfield-led Rams. But I started Derek Carr in 2 leagues, so I'm in a bad mood, Dave. I don't want to talk about it. Adam, Dave, and Jamie here to break down 6 NFC home games and last night's crap fest. And as you pointed out, Cam Akers outscoring Devontae Adams. OMG.
Yeah, get ready for an exciting week 14 if this is the barometer in which we're beginning with for the week. Baker Mayfield was off target on 25.7% of his throws, which I think we would all expect since he's barely been with the Rams. But man, did he make throws when he needed to make them. He actually looked pretty dang good. Receivers made plays for him. It was incredible to watch. And now we're at the point with Josh McDaniels where I feel like there's no coming back from this. I don't see how he coaches next year unless the Raiders cheap out, which given as much as they've paid coaches, they might do, which is an indictment on Mark Davis. But you think about what their year has been. They were up 23-7 going into the fourth quarter against Arizona. They lost that game by 6. They got blown out by Andy Dalton. They lost to the Colts with Jeff Saturday as their head coach. They were up 20-7 with less than a minute left in the half against Jacksonville. They lost that game by 7. They just lost last week. They're giving up like 15 points per game in the second half. They're 10th worst. They're awful. They're not making second half adjustments. McDaniels is not doing well at all. And just a reminder, he lost 17 of his last 22 games when he was with the Broncos back 2 decades ago. So bad times for the Raiders for sure, and bad times for everybody like you, Adam, who started Derek Carr.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to tell you something. I have a league, Jamie, our IDP league. I'm in 6th place. I got a 1-game lead on 7th place. I'm going to lose this week. And I have a 130-point lead over 7th place. And now I'm worried that I'm gonna lose that gap because Derek Carr was so bad, and like half my team is on a bye. But what happened to the passing game, Jamie? I mean, I don't understand. It was such a weird, clunky, disjointed game. I don't know what the hell happened to Derek Carr. What was your take on that? 2 points, 2 freaking fantasy points.
One of the worst interceptions I've ever seen. On the first
in the red zone by the goal line.
He looked like he thought he can get. It might have been Foster Moreau in the back of the end zone,
or Matt Collins.
That he thought he can make the throw, and as he's getting hit, he's still throwing the ball. But it looked like he released it before he got hit, and so it was weird how it all unfolded. But I mean, that's something like you see in a Sandlot game.
Yeah.
It was bad, and I think part of it was like they thought 13-3. It was a little weird because Jacobs had the hand injury and left. To go get x-rays, and he was clearly in pain when he came back. And so I don't know if it was just like, let's just get our win and go home, and they stopped being aggressive. But the first play not the first play, but the first big play to Devontae Adams, it just felt like all Adams was doing the entire game, at least for the majority of it, was just running go routes. Like, I don't quite understand like why they weren't being more creative and moving him around. Granted, throwing at Ramsey's not the smartest thing, but all the end arounds to Mac Hollins, it just was like just such a weird game that it almost felt like they thought, okay, we just show up and we win because the Rams don't have anything to offer us, and then they're throwing in a quarterback that just showed up 2 days ago, and we should be able to just do whatever we want. It just felt like they had no sense of urgency, no sense of this is what we have to do. I mean, they're probably not now, but they were a playoff contender.
They absolutely were. Yeah.
It just felt like they just thought we show up, we win because of what the Rams don't have.
Well, give credit to the Rams. And I think, when you look at what they did to Devontae Adams, they shadowed him with Jalen Ramsey. And Josh Jacobs had 27 carries and only went for 99 yards. He did have the touchdown. So I think they tried to run the clock out, basically, and they couldn't. They got stopped on that 3rd and 1. And then, shockingly, 98-yard touchdown drive by Baker Mayfield. But as we look at fantasy implications here, I mean, next week you're going to go back to Adams. You're going to go back to Jacobs if you're in the playoffs for sure. Hopefully Darren Waller is back, and we don't have to debate how to pronounce Foster Moreau's last name. But Baker Mayfield with some competence at quarterback, Dave. And does that give you hope? Because you're like, Denver could be tough in week 16. but week 15 is Green Bay. Week 17 is the Chargers. When you look at Akers, maybe Skoranek or Atwell, I don't know what you're thinking there. Do you feel more confident in the Rams offense right now that you might actually use these guys in your fantasy playoffs?
We don't know what the injuries will be this week, and we don't know what everybody's situation is at wide receiver, but I think you'd have to be pretty desperate to go after Skoranek or Atwell. Atwell's got speed. Skoranek's got size. He's like the poor man's Cooper Kupp. And he just needed, anytime these guys get a ton of targets, yeah, they're on the table to get you at least 10 PPR points. That's what each of them did on Thursday. They each had at least 8 targets. Baker might settle on those guys. If you had told me, and here's another thing, and this is kind of a confessional, if you had told me Baker Mayfield was going to throw the ball 35 times, I would have told you to start Tyler Higbee, because Mayfield's track record over his career is to lean on tight ends, especially in the red zone. So I was surprised that Higbee only had 3 targets in the game.
Yeah.
But I don't know if there's a receiver on the Rams that fantasy managers are going to want to trust when we get to next week and playoffs on the line. DFS is a different story. We might go after Atwell or Skoranek in that format. But I also don't think that we can look at Baker Mayfield and say, all right, he's going to, throw like this. And again, off target on a quarter of his throws. That's crazy high. I don't think we can say that he's going to be that great moving forward.
Okay, but so then let's talk about Akers, and we'll finish up with this game and preview 6 games. Oh, we got Vikings, Lions. That's a nice one. We have 49ers and Bucks. That's an interesting one. Niners are favored there. Fantasy, the other 4 games are kind of crappy that we're talking about today, but for fantasy, they're interesting. New England at Arizona, Houston at Dallas. Like, honestly, some tough calls in that game. Philadelphia and the Giants. Can we go with Darius Slayton? I'm nervous about Saquon Barkley. Carolina at Seattle. Who the heck is playing running back in this game? But Jamie, give me your thoughts on Cam Akers here. 2 encouraging games in a row. He was started in 41% of leagues, and he scored. Look, he's not going to tear it up on the ground, but he has scored 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games. So, your thoughts on Akers going forward with Green Bay next week?
It's the second straight game with the same offensive line. And so that's, I think, encouraging for the Rams that they had the same unit out there, and they're starting to get some continuity, which has just been an absolute disaster. Clearly, he is going to be the featured guy. The fact that he fumbled and they went back to him is encouraging, especially getting the touchdown late. So that's, I think another thing in his favor. If the quarterback play is competent, and clearly that's going to be something we have to keep an eye on here, then you feel a little bit better about him. So non-PPR, half PPR is clearly going to be the formats that favor him because he's not going to work in the passing game. That's very obvious. So he's touchdown dependent. I would say he's at this point a poor man's Jamal Williams. So if that's what you like and that's what you need and you're stuck, clearly there's a lot of injuries at this position, and we're getting to the point where finding guys that are getting a lot of work is somewhat important. But he doesn't score, you see what you're getting. So that's just kind of what the type of player he is.
And I see what you're getting. You're getting this. Look at this shirt. Look at this long sleeve Fantasy Football Today shirt. Love this shirt. We have so many great things for you to get in our store, in our CBS store. T-shirts, mugs, sweatpants, laser engraved pint glasses, hats, water bottles, and more to rep Fantasy Football Today or any of our podcasts. The URL is in the episode description, so you can check that out in the YouTube description, in the regular podcast description. And if you want to use our code FantasyFootball20, you can get 20% off your order. All right, so if you want anything with the FFT logo on it, some really cool stuff in there. Sweatpants. I like sweatpants. Check it out. Get that offer code FantasyFootball20. Go to the CBS Sports store, the Fantasy Football Today section. Again, the link is in the episode description, or you can just type in CBS Sports Store, Fantasy Football Today to the search engine of your choice. Dave, if Google went down today, which search engine would you use?
DuckDuckGo.
That's a thing?
Yeah.
DuckDuckGo. I never heard of that. Wow, that's a good name. I like it. All right. Look at this from Aldwin. I'm no snitch, but Adam, you only got 47 likes right now. Come on, we can do better than that. Let's go hit that like button, everybody. It's Friday. It's a happy Friday. Let's talk about people who are injured. Are you guys ranking Trevor Lawrence right now? He did not practice again.
Yes.
I'm ranking him until he doesn't practice on Friday, and then I will rank CJ Beathard, and I will do it with a tear in my eye.
Yeah. Well, I already have a tear in my eye because Trevor Lawrence is the reason why I started Derek Carr in a league. So,
Yeah, you had to.
You idiot.
Yeah. Desmond Ridder is going to start at quarterback for the Falcons when they come back from their bye. They're at New Orleans. Just 2 quarterback superflex.
Yes, that's it.
Good or bad for Drake London?
For now.
Amy, good or bad for Drake London?
I can't imagine it's worse. So I would say good, just because it's something different. And, the fact that he was featured in their last game, that's encouraging. So, it's one game of Zacchaeus and one game of London, and the 2 games without Kyle Pitts, where both guys have had significant target bumps. I would imagine the mantra is, especially if they continue to follow playoff contention, feature Drake London as much as we can.
Okay, we're still not expecting Lamar Jackson, and Tua Tagovailoa should be good for this week. At running back, Joe Mixon's the starter. Is he good to go? Is he cleared?
He has not cleared the concussion protocol yet, but there is one report from the team website that says he will be the quote 1. So, a lot of talk about is Samaje Perine, has he done enough to make it more of a tandem? According to, I think it's Jeff Hobson's the writer there, who's been around forever.
Yes.
And he says no, it's Joe Mixon, and they'll sprinkle Perine in as they normally do.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, Seattle. So Travis Homer practiced in full. That was cool. But Ken Walker,
you want.
You think so?
Yeah.
I was going to sing Grease there, but I decided not to.
If we weren't in a fight, I would say sing all you want to, but I'm a little mad at you right.
Walker okay, so we'll see what happens today in practice. But if Travis Homer is the starting running back, I think he's a better running back than DJ Dallas. I'll throw that out there. Has been since college. And where would you rank him? Because I look at some of my teams and say, yeah, I would start Travis Homer over some of these scrubs with 6 teams on a bye. Where would you rank Travis Homer?
High end flex.
I'd probably rank him where I have Tony Jones right now, which is in that same range. But I don't think he'd be alone. I don't think he'd be like what we've seen from Homer is that he's played on passing downs. And so if they give him if he's the guy that you want, then what does that leave for Jones? Are they going to split rushing work?
They don't really have like a rushing downs guy. That's the thing.
I think Jones is the rushing downs guy.
I think actually the most likely rushing downs guy would probably be Wayne Gallman. And so I don't think they're going to rush Wayne Gallman out there. Like
it could be that too.
Tony Jones is more of a version of Travis Homer. So I think they go with the guy who's been there.
I don't think so.
I would think it would be Travis Homer getting the majority of work.
I think Jones is much more of a physical type of running back. I don't think he's a pass catcher like Homer is either. I'm not saying that he's good, but I'll say that if Gallman will get elevated if Dallas and Walker don't play. You'll probably see Homer and Jones split rushing reps and Homer on third downs.
Well, who's getting elevated? Gallman, the original, the OG scary music guy, back in our lives. It is a happy.
He actually might. I think he's probably better than Tony Jones too, to be completely transparent.
Yeah, I don't know. Like Tony Jones. Oh yeah, I mean Homer's. He almost never gets to run the ball, but he's not bad at it, I think, so far. But yeah, right. He's kind of a smaller guy.
Could be a Geno week. Could be a real good Geno week.
Yeah, I think he's my FanDuel quarterback. Deontay Foreman was limited, so that's good. He didn't practice Wednesday. He did practice on Thursday in a limited fashion.
He'll go. He'll play.
He doesn't go. I would assume if he doesn't go if both Foreman and Walker missed the game, I would think Chuba Hubbard would be the highest ranked running back, right?
Easy.
Yes.
Damian Harris missed practice, so yay for Stevenson. Najee Harris was limited. DeAndre Swift practiced in full on Thursday after he was on the injury report on Wednesday. And Saquon Barkley was limited with a neck injury. I don't know if you guys feel this way, but man, I feel very nervous about a lot of running backs this week, including Barkley for sure. But like Barkley, ETN, maybe a little Derrick Henry, Damian Pierce is on the lower end, but a lot of guys are starting. I don't know. I got the
Dalvin Cook.
Dalvin, yeah, I got the heebie-jeebies about them this week. All right, well, what are you going to do about it? But yeah, I'm glad I'm
start
not.
Travis Homer.
No, I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
Are you going to start Chris Moore at Dallas? Brandon Cooks and Nico Collins are both looking like they're out. Dave, you going to start a Texans wide receiver?
No, not unless I'm completely desperate. Chris Moore and Philip Dorsett would be the two that you're looking at there. I suspect they'll use a lot of tight ends. They're going to need to help block anyway. So Akins will see the field a lot, and Brevin Jordan made some plays last week. Mm-hmm. Don't start anybody in the Texans passing game if you can help it.
I think the Cowboys win this game. But we'll see. Mike Williams practiced in full. Jalen Waddle practiced in full. Rondale Moore missed practice. Greg Dortch practiced in full. I did see Greg Dortch get added in a couple of leagues. Just, Jamie, we have no idea. We've never seen Hopkins, Marquise Brown, and one of those slot guys, be it Moore or Dortch. Where are you ranking Dortch right now?
I mean, he'll be a low end number 3 receiver, but there's plenty of opportunity there. I think they're going to struggle to run. James Conner is going to make plays in the passing game. So I think there's, 40 plus passes from Kyler Murray coming. And, I could see Dortch getting 6-7 targets. So not a bad number 3 receiver.
He'll be in single coverage every single snap because the Patriots will be far more focused on slowing down Hopkins and Brown.
Deontay Johnson missed practice with a hip injury. We'll see what happens on, I think I said hip injury. We'll see what happens on Friday. Cortland Sutton unlikely to play. Amari Cooper was limited with a hip injury as well. Traylon Burks doesn't look like he's going to play. T. Higgins was limited with a hamstring injury. Kadarius Toney continues to be limited to practice. Tight end news, there's not much. David Njoku's going to play, it looks like. Daniel LaRusso's going to fight, and Hayden Hurst is unlikely to play. Teron Armstead got in a limited practice, so it would be nice if he's back for that Sunday night game. The Chargers getting a little healthier, looks like, on their offensive line. Patriots, both of their starting offensive tackles missed practice. One of them, though, was with an illness, so I would expect Trent Brown to play. Not sure about Isaiah Wynn. They did get Yadni Kajust, one of their starting guard, back. He was limited in practice. They were really beat up on the offensive line last week against the Bills, and hopefully can get a couple pieces back, or at least adjust. Jets right tackle Max Mitchell is out for the season. We wish him the best. Hope he gets back out there next year. He has blood clots that he's dealing with. Giants defense extremely banged up. Looks like they're going to be without 3 of their best players, which is perfect against the Eagles. They're going to do great. Philadelphia slot cornerback Avonte Maddox could be back this week. Dave, you were talking to me about how big of a deal that might be.
It's a huge deal because we've seen slot receivers do well against Philadelphia lately, relatively. And this is just another guy who makes that defense that much better.
But also you mentioned that Slayton had been playing more in the slot.
He had been playing more in the slot. So without Maddox, Slayton was actually a decent play, but now it looks like Maddox will be back. Slayton is on the sit list.
Satan?
Yeah, I love it. Tennessee cornerback Christian Fulton has a groin injury. He's their best corner.
That's another defense that's all beat up is Tennessee.
Yeah. Won't matter if it's Beathard.
Probably not. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to help you beat the waiver wire for your fantasy playoffs. Then we'll get into the games. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today. Okay, let's beat the waiver wire. I'm going to throw out some DSTs, and you tell me if they are appealing to you next week. The Lions at the Jets. The Vikings against the Colts. The Cardinals at the Broncos. You want to stash any of them? The Lions at the Jets, the Vikings against the Colts, or the Cardinals at the Broncos?
I think the Cardinals will be my favorite of the 3 against Denver and Russell Wilson.
The Vikings against the Colts for me.
Okay, you can make a case for all these. And, the Lions defense has been playing pretty well, but the
Can't
Jets
stop Mike White.
Yeah, Jets might not be a great matchup. All right, I got 2 quarterbacks to consider. One's Desmond Ridder for deeper leagues. What do you think about adding Jameis Winston? Gets the Falcons next week. No idea if he's the quarterback. I haven't seen anything on it. I think by now they probably would have said something, so I'm guessing no.
No, they're on bye. They don't have to say anything until next week.
Yeah, I know, but the Falcons did. But you're right. I picked him up in a Superflex league, Jameis Winston. So
that's not a bad idea. Just to speculate in case he is the guy, and then they've got Cleveland the week after that.
Cleveland, pretty good pass defense. So the Falcons matchup would be much, very appealing, I would think. I don't really have much for beat the waiver wire. Honestly, there are no buys next week, and I don't know. I mean, let me take a look at the wide receiver list. Like Jamison Williams is available.
He should
Drake
be
London
on
probably got dropped.
benches anyway.
Yeah, if the Commanders DST gets dropped, go for it.
Yes, good
Drake
call.
London is 70% rostered.
Just on Jamison
I
Williams
got
real
one.
quick. If I could, they've got the Jets in week 15. I'm assuming that his playing time is going to ramp up as we move forward here. When you get to week 16 against Carolina and week 17 against Chicago, he could end up being not every down, but plenty of downs for Detroit. And maybe he can put off some numbers there. He could be a number 3 receiver by the time you get to the fantasy championship.
Well, what's Chark at? I'd much rather have Chark.
Chark is at 57%, Jamison Williams 56%. And then there's one other guy I wanted to bring up. How about Mecole Hardman, 35%?
Good call.
Yep.
You know his name, Mecole Hardman, 35%.
Houston,
All right.
Seattle, Denver, next 3 weeks for Kansas City.
It's time for one question for each game. Minnesota is at Detroit. Jamie, Cousins or Goff? Jamie,
I like both, but I probably go Cousins.
Okay, yeah, well, maybe just look at the camera a little bit. That would be very helpful.
Are you gonna start this again?
We talked about it for 10 minutes yesterday. I mean,
wait, what?
It's a
I
visual
told you
medium.
you bother me about this again, I'm gonna get up and walk away.
I don't get up and walk away, but you have to look at the camera. I mean, it's part of the show. Okay. Dave, I don't even know what the hell were we talking about there?
You know what you were talking about.
What?
You were doing one question for each game, and you started with the game.
Oh, damn it! It's the game of the week, yeah. Dave figured out the gag. He was all over it. A Minnesota at Detroit. Hey, Jamie, come back. We're not fighting. Damn you, Dave. Our well-laid plans.
It was too obvious this time.
Was it? We were
too obvious.
Though. We laid the groundwork.
I'm just going to give you some pointers here. First of all, you can't. I know which games you're considering for game of the week.
That's
week.
true. Yeah.
So you can't do it when I know that we're talking about the game. You have to bring up the game, just like you have to make a hard right turn to bring up the game while we're talking about something else.
It's getting challenging. It really is.
This would be so easy if I I had the little buttons to play the music and I was trying to fool you or Jamie, I'd get you every week.
All right, Jamie, you can come back now and tell us Kirk Cousins or Jared Goff. Please come back.
Jamie's ghosting the rest of the show.
All right, Dave, you can answer it. Who would you rather start, Cousins or Goff?
I like them both. I'm going to take Cousins over Goff, but it's not with a ton of confidence. I thought Cousins played poorly last week. He started off slow. I think it was like one of his first 8 passing. And then he started to turn it up a little bit, but it wasn't like he was outstanding. Goff has been playing great for a while now. And I think the Vikings secondary is susceptible. So I guess I'm saying I kind of like Goff. I'm starting Goff in DFS, but I do like them both.
Okay. Jamie is on the Peloton, speculates David. Okay. Tampa Bay and San Francisco. Would you start both Tampa Bay running backs over both San Francisco wide receivers?
No.
Would you start any Tampa Bay running back over any San Francisco wide receiver?
I don't think so.
Really?
I kind of dig Purdy. I thought his second half was good. I thought he made some good decisions with the ball. He can throw on the run. His offensive line's not that bad. I think we're kind of overreacting to him being the quarterback there. I'm not saying he's going to be better than Garoppolo or anything like that, but I got this will sound a little funny, some Nick Mullins vibes while watching him play. Remember when Mullins came out of nowhere?
Yeah.
And had a 3-touchdown game on a Thursday night and ended up being okay for the 49ers. I think Purdy will end up being okay for them. I like Debo better than Ayuk. I like them both better than any Tampa running back.
Really?
Against this 49ers team. Yes.
Yeah, it was just, they're getting all those catches, but Hi, Jamie. I'm
You
sorry. I'm sorry I didn't execute it well.
You screwed it up.
Jamie and I.
You both hold on. You're both guilty. You both screwed it up.
Nah, if he screwed it up, he didn't do what I told him to do.
That's true. I didn't do what I told him to do, but I could. Dave was on it right at the jump.
That's why I told you couldn't go right to that game first.
Jamie wanted me to go to sell it a little bit more, go to another game, and then figure out a way to bring it back up.
The minute that you used the best game, he was going to figure out it was the best game.
Hard right turn, guys.
Okay.
Next week, make a hard right turn.
Lesson learned. All right. So New England at Arizona. Start or sit Marquise Brown, Jamie?
Start. Again, 6 teams on a bye. I think he's a low-end number 2 receiver. Again, a lot of passes coming this game for Kyler Murray. So I think Marquise Brown is a solid play this week. 6 catches last time we saw him in the first game with Hopkins. So I like the setup.
Houston at Dallas. Yami
Look
and
at
Pierce?
the camera, Jamie.
Yamian Pierce or Namian Pierce?
It's Namian.
Namian? Okay. Philadelphia at the Giants. Darius Yayton or Darius Nayton?
Nay.
It's a nay.
Who would you rather start? Namian Pierce or Darius Nayton?
Slayton and PPR.
Agreed. I might take Nathan in non PPR just because something. Jamie made a great point on FFT yesterday, calling back to the 2 bad games that Pierce had against really tough run defenses.
Yeah,
in weeks 11 and 12, I think they were, and he had 15 total carries in the game. Could very easily see something similar this week against Dallas. Dallas is a really good defense, as you guys know.
Yeah, I dug into this a little bit. So there have been 6 games in which Dameon Pierce, the Texans, have lost by 10 or more points. And in 4 of the games, Dameon Pierce had a fine game. You would definitely start him, somewhere around 14-ish PPR fantasy points. One game was a really big game, but 4 of the games were just fine. 2 of the games were dreadful, less than 5 fantasy points, and that was Washington and Miami. And if you look at the 6 games in the breakdown, you can see there are 2 run defenses, 2 excellent run defenses, Washington and Miami. He was horrible, but also in both of those games, one of them was a 25-point game at halftime. One, I think, was 35-0 at halftime. Am I crazy, or was that the Dolphins score? So they were so non-competitive. And the other angle of it with Dameon Pierce is he's really just not running the ball nearly as well lately.
Is it going to be competitive?
No, it's not going to be competitive. But is it going to be so non-competitive like the Dolphins game where Tua got pulled in the third quarter? I think it was 35-0 at halftime, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, it might not be far off from that, especially if there's no Nico Collins or Brandon Cooks. This is just a bad situation for him.
This has the makings of one of the biggest blowouts of the year for sure.
It does. It could be 45-2. I did think that he ran better last week, just for what it's worth.
Well, he played Cleveland. He should have, but over the last 4 or 5 games, his metrics are just much worse.
Yes. Yeah. Well, he's played a lot of tough run defenses.
Yeah, but just very, very few long carries. I think he has
scoring touchdowns.
1 carry of more than 13 yards in his last 4 games, and not scoring touchdowns. Okay, Carolina at Seattle. We did talk about the running backs in this game. So starter sit DJ Moore. I think it's a really interesting one. Starter sit DJ Moore this week, guys.
I've got him as a low-end number 2 wide receiver.
I like him better than Brandon Ayuk. I like him better than Mike Evans right now. I like him better than the Steelers guys. Unless Deontay's out, then I might move Pickens out of him. But
what about Gabe Davis? Who do you have there?
I like DJ Moore better than Gabe Davis.
Same.
So I think there's hopefully an opportunity to build off what we saw with Sam Darnold. Now, granted, it was only 4 catches, but you saw a play down the field, you saw an end zone target. So there's things to like about this, and I do think that they're going to be in maybe a surprising shootout. So I think Sam Darnold is going to actually be a decent play if you're stuck at quarterback, and I would not be surprised if DJ Moore has another 15-plus point game.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Carolina wants to run the ball. They only threw 20 times, I think, last time, or 19 times with Sam Darnold, but we are expecting Seattle to score some points in this game, put some pressure on the Carolina Panthers. So we'll go to the game. Start or sit for Minnesota at Detroit. That's where we start. Should I play the music? Nah, okay. Minnesota at Detroit is our game of the week. It should be great. I have so many freaking stats in this game. But here's the Azer stat of the game. If you remove the 2 games that Amon-Ra St. Brown played fewer than 35% of the snaps, he is averaging 21.8 PPR points per game. Justin Jefferson is averaging 21.7 PPR fantasy points per game for this season. So they are basically tied. If you remove those injured games for St. Brown, they're basically tied as wide receiver 5 behind Diggs, Kupp, Adams. Well, actually, that was before Thursday.
Right, Adams is going to slide now.
Probably not that much. And Tyreek Hill.
But what's St. Brown averaging even with those 2 games?
I'm not sure. But, I mean, I'm sure he's top 10. He's amazing. He's just amazing. Here's the non-Azer stat of the game. These 2 teams allow the most rushing touchdowns from the 2-yard line or closer. Jamal Williams managers.
That's a great stat.
Yeah. All right.
St. Brown's at 18.5 on the season. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That is 8th best.
Oh. Okay, so is Detroit a tough matchup, Jamie? Their defense has gotten so much better.
Their run defense is. Their pass defense is not.
Agreed. Right. Yes.
All right. Who's your favorite quarterback in this game? I asked Dave. He's it's a toss up. It seems. Jamie.
Yeah,
Dave?
no, I like both. I think Cousins in a better spot. He's got a little bit of an easier opponent. He's been absolutely dreamy in Minnesota, in Detroit in his career, and I think he's got a better receiving core. So I also think there's much more of an opportunity for the Lions to run against the Vikings than there is for the Vikings to run against the Lions. And that says a lot because obviously Dalvin Cook is probably the best running back in this game. But clearly he has not had a great season. Their run blocking has not been great. And this run defense for Detroit has been unbelievable for like the last month. So I think it's going to be a game where Cousins has to throw. And the Lions will, I think, be a little bit more balanced. So I think both quarterbacks are definitely in play. Goff has been great at home, 6 of 7 games at home, 18 or more fantasy points. So he's good in this spot. So this is the highest projected game of the week, 53 points. And I think we're going to see a lot of offense for both of these teams. At least that's the hope. So I think both are definitely in play as starting quarterbacks, but I give a slight nod to Cousins.
Okay, 6 straight games for the Lions without allowing double-digit fantasy points to a running back. So single-digit PPR fantasy points for a lead running back in 6 straight games. Miami, Green Bay, Chicago, the Giants, the Bills, and the Jaguars. No running back has more than 15 carries in that stretch, and running backs are averaging 3.8 yards per carry against the Lions in their last 6 games. So with that said, who is your favorite running back in this game?
Swift.
D-A-N-D-R-E. Swift.
You forgot about the apostrophe.
The apostrophe? Yeah, I know. DeAndre Swift is my favorite in people.
Who's your second favorite?
Kenny Nwangu.
Well, look, Jamal Williams has obviously been good, but he only had 11 carries last week. And
his role is going to shrink because Swift is playing more. Cook is the second best.
Okay, who's your favorite wide receiver in this game?
Jefferson.
It's Justin Jefferson by 2 spots over Amon-Ra.
What about Okuda? Did a great job against Jefferson.
Jefferson beat double teams last week. Doesn't matter.
He's done well against. He's had significant help over the top.
Oh, leave him alone. Yeah, okay. Anyway, start them both. Is there any other receiver you would start in this game?
Adam Thielen, absolutely. They've been miserable against receivers lately.
You're feeling it.
Yeah. I think Hawkinson will have a better game than Thielen.
I don't disagree with
Thielen's a flex
I think
for me.
Thielen's also worth starting.
He's a flex.
Yeah, no, he's number 2 receiver for me. I think there's a good opportunity here based on how much that they're going to throw the ball.
DJ Moore or Thielen?
Oh, Thielen.
Wow.
Okay, I'll take Moore.
Okay. I don't know why I said wow like that. Like DJ Moore is so good.
Because Adam Thielen has been pretty bad himself, especially since
he has.
Hawkinson's come around. There was the one game, it was 2 games ago, where they used him old school style where he was close
Last
to line
time Cousins was good.
and he did well. And they've otherwise deployed him as a downfield receiver, and he's just not as good in that role.
There have been 6 times this year where multiple wide receivers have scored 12 or more PPR fantasy points against the Lions. That's a lot. 6 times in 12 games, including the Vikings, including 3 Giants. Wandale, Richie James, and Darius Slayton. So, yeah, this is a really good matchup. And if you're stuck starting Thielen, you should feel better about it this week than you usually do.
Yes.
I have a tough call between. I think, you know what? I think I'm going to do it. I haven't done it once since I had both of them on my team. I'm going to start Hawkinson over Dalton Schultz. How you guys feel about that?
Great week to do that.
would too,
Love
yeah.
that.
Hawkinson should be the third best tight end this week.
Oh, wow. Because I know you have Schultz in your top 5. So an embarrassment of riches for me at the tight end position. All right. Anything
Do you like that though? Don't, because you probably didn't spend that much draft capital. Well, maybe you did.
No, I took Hawkinson in the 8th-ish round, and then I picked up Schultz off waivers.
Okay. So that's good. When you've got 2 tight ends like that, that's a good alternative to having one stud, and definitely better than, I'd rather have the stud. Never mind that, but better than streaming for sure.
So you're going to start both of those guys over Kittle. Well, we'll just stick with Hawkinson. You're going to start him over Kittle. I mean, look at Hawkinson's. Oh, you're not? Sorry.
I'll probably land on Hawkinson, Kittle, Schultz.
Oh, I would definitely go Hawkinson. I don't really love Kittle this week, so I think Hawkinson's a much better play.
I don't want to oversell Hawkinson. He's got 4 straight games with 33 to 45 yards. He's got 2 straight games with only 6 targets. It's much more difficult competition. It is. That's true. Buffalo, Dallas, New England, and the Jets. They've been the last 4 teams they've faced. So the Lions give up the 5th most fantasy points to tight ends. It's really amazing how their defense has turned a corner. Very impressive.
Well, they've changed some personnel. They fired their defensive backs coach, and it's worked out for them. I think Aiden Hutchinson has started to play a lot better too. On the revenge game factor, the offensive coordinator for the Lions, Ben Johnson, talked about how last week Chark was truly motivated because he was playing his former team. He admitted it. And then a reporter said, well, couldn't that also work against you this week because Hawkinson's coming back? And Johnson kind of had like a moment where it was like, oh, yeah, it's probably going to happen. So Hawkinson should be in lineups for sure. I think he was already going to be in lineups, but you can feel even better about it. Maybe DFS is where you go with him.
Yeah. Okay. So last on the quarterbacks, Cousins or Dak Prescott or the quarterbacks in this game?
This game.
Agreed. I'll sit Dak.
How about Justin Herbert?
Herbert.
I have Herbert behind him.
Oh, both of them.
Especially with Mike Williams back, Herbert. He's throwing the ball 45 times in that game.
I think he averages 42, so he might get to 50.
Nice.
All right, yeah, this is a game with a lot of starts. Oh, Jamal Williams. I do think we should spend a little time on Jamal Williams here. All right, Travis Homer, if he's the guy, or Jamal Williams, just to get an idea of where you have Jamal Williams.
Travis Homer
or Jamal Williams.
Jamal.
Oh, Homer and PPR.
I'll take Williams.
Okay, Jamal Williams or Bucks running backs.
Jamal and the Bucks and anything else.
I
think I'm going to eventually have it Fournette, White, Williams.
Ooh, this is a good idea. Let's get a revenge game-o-meter. Aldwin suggests. He's had some good comments.
A revengeometer?
Revengeometer. Yeah, mid-season trade. I think that's got to rank pretty high up there on the revengeometer for 100%. Hawkinson. Yeah. Okay, sit the DSTs. Let's go to our next game. Tampa Bay is at San Francisco. Tom Brady is outside the top 12. He is, I think, 14th for Dave as the high guy on Tom Brady. This is an interesting game, obviously, with Purdy. I can't really make a case for Tom Brady. So try to sit him. You wouldn't start like Daniel Jones over him, would you?
Not even in your dreams.
How about Tyler Huntley or Tom Brady?
I'll take Brady.
I go Huntley. More upside.
All right.
More downside also, but more upside.
Okay, so let's talk about the Tampa Bay running backs here, because you can't run on San Francisco. They don't really run well on just about anyone, and the Niners probably have the best run defense in football. They also allowed the 7th fewest receiving yards per game to running backs. And, Dave, everything's hunky-dory right now because they threw 15 times to their running backs last week. They throw, on average, 8.5 times to their running backs per game. And that, by the way, guess the 3 teams that lead the NFL in running back targets. They're third. Bucks are third.
Who throws to their most running backs? That we're asking?
Yeah, top 3 teams in running back.
Chargers.
Chargers are 1 with a bullet. Bucks are third.
I don't know if the 49ers are up there now with McCaffrey.
No, they're not. The Bucks are one target behind a surprise team. I couldn't believe it. I had to go check the stats to make sure it was right. They're in the AFC South.
It's not the Titans.
Is it Houston?
Keep going.
Oh, it's the Titans.
It's not the Titans. Running
The
back
Colts.
targets? No, it's
Colts.
the Colts. The Colts have the second
That is
most running back target. Isn't that weird? Very strange. All right. Anyway,
Well, Deion Jackson did have that 10-catch game.
yeah. I mean, they had Hines.
Remember that one
Taylor
time?
gets some targets, but they have like 102 running back targets, and I think the Bucks have 101. But anyway, Jamie, Rashad or Dave, I think it was going to you. Sorry, Rashad White,
Okay.
Leonard Fournette. Who do you like better? Where do you have them ranked?
I will eventually have Fournette ranked ahead of Rashad White. Remember earlier this week, we talked about how lucky you were to get good fantasy production out of Rashad White. Fournette played better in the game. He's more experienced. He had more snaps inside the 10. I don't really love either one of them. And it's because of everything that you've talked about. Everybody knows that the matchup is going to be really hard. The offensive line is beat up for Tampa. You're hoping that Brady throws another 15 passes to the running backs again. You're hoping that they catch north of five balls. You're hoping they average 8 yards per catch and that you squeeze out 11, 12 PPR points from each of them. I think Fournette's the safer bet.
Yeah, I'm going to go the other way. I think Fournette showed up on the injury report again on Thursday. I didn't think he looked better. I thought White looked better in the game despite the fumble. Fournette looked slow again, running the contact again. I think this is going to be a game where they're chasing points. So I think they're going to use the more explosive back in the passing game. So I like the setup for White better, but I think both guys are flex plays.
Damian Pierce or a Tampa Bay running back?
Both Bucks running backs.
Agreed.
Okay.
I also moved Najee down behind them both in PPR. I can't explain why Najee was a top 15 running back for me yesterday. It was ridiculous.
Okay. All right, let's talk about the Bucks wide receivers. Just must start Chris Godwin.
100%.
Okay.
Of course.
And Mike Evans. Start or sit, Jamie?
I'd sit him if you can. I mean, again, it's hard to sit guys like Pierce and Najee and, some of these other guys we're talking about with 6 teams on a bye. But Evans is clearly struggling. 4 catches, 4 targets, hasn't scored a touchdown in seems like forever. Tough secondary that he's facing, tough defense that he's facing. Brady's not having a good time throwing the ball down the field right now. So I think it's number 3 receiver. So if you start 3 receivers, he's fine. If you start 2 receivers in a flex and use your best flex, he's fine. In a 2 receiver league where you have better flex options, I would set him.
I've got him as a low end number 2 receiver. I noticed this trend this year, and it goes back to previous years with Brady. This year, there's been 4 times where Evans has seen 6 or fewer targets in a game. In the week following the first 3 times it happened, he bounced back to 10, 15, and 9 targets from Brady. And we saw it most times last year and the year before that. I'm okay with Evans. Can't say that I love him. You're hoping that he catches 6 of 9 passes and finds the end zone.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the Niners, I don't know if this matters to you, but they allowed the 10th most fantasy points to wide receivers. They obviously got destroyed by Tyreek Hill, bad against Greg Dortch and DeAndre Hopkins. Their defense has not been as good. Their pass defense has not been as good since Emmanuel Mosley got hurt. That's my theory. So I don't know if I want to look at it as that difficult of a matchup, and I can almost guarantee at least 40 pass attempts for Brady because they ain't going to be able to run the ball.
No chance, and that's what Brady does anyway. I've got a stat and I've got a question. The stat, and this kind of plays into what you were saying, Adam, a receiver's had at least 15 PPR points against the 49ers 10 times this year. In 8 of them, there's been 8 targets thrown. So volume receivers seem to get it done. That's great for Godwin. That should be good for Evans. The question is, I saw Nick Bosa on the injury report. Is there a chance he misses the game, or is it just that they're only giving him 1 day of practice a week?
Oh, that would change everything.
Hamstring.
I think he played through an injury. He played through the injury with the Dolphins in the Dolphins game, right?
Yeah. And he made an impact in that game. So
look, you could make a case for Mike Evans every week. Right. Like this team, what they do against wide receivers, and Brady's going to throw a ton and Evans going to get targeted. The bottom line is they're just not connecting. So it's
right.
Just,
but all it'll take is one big play. And then all of a sudden we'll say, all right, they're connecting again. And you don't want to miss out, but it's such a tough matchup, especially for Brady, that if you wanted to miss out this week, there's a decent chance you'll not regret it come Monday morning.
There's only 2 quarterbacks over 19 points against this team. One was the fluky game with Mariota. One was Patrick Mahomes. They give
Well,
up
the
an average
Mariota
of
game, their defense was all beat up.
Both
They
I don't
games.
think they had
they
Bosa
give
for
up
that
less
game.
than 15 points per game on average to quarterbacks. It's
Yeah.
just it's a bad setup.
Okay, so
I mean, imagine how would you feel about Brady if he didn't get those 2 touchdowns last week? Under 3 minutes to go.
Same.
It'd be even worse.
oh, for sure. Although, I mean, for Brady, he's been what, like 19 to 22 points in 4 of his last 5 games or something?
I mean, look, he's been three straight or 4 straight over 20 points, but it's it's kind of ugly how it's happening. I mean, the game in Munich where he had the bad interception. Last week he was struggling for the majority of the game. He's throwing underneath, which is why the running backs I think are still in play, especially in a matchup like this where he's going to be under pressure. And let's not forget, they're still without Wirfs. There's still an offensive line that's going to be under a lot of pressure. So
Definitely.
can't run the ball. He's going to be asked to throw a lot. Coming off a short week, could be a little rough for him.
Sit Kate Otten.
I would have liked Kate Otten if there was no Cameron Brate, but Brayton full is just the bad situation.
Yeah,
I'm not starting him either, but do you think there's a chance that Tom Brady and Byron Leftwich say, look, this dude can make plays. Let's put him out there more. Who cares if Brate's ready?
I would hope so. I would have thought that would have been the case the majority of the time because of what he offers as a pass catcher. But I also think that with their offensive line woes, Brady is a much better blocker. So, having him on the field, I think is more of a priority. And that Brady likes to have 3 receivers on the field. So, it's a situation where there's just a personnel crunch.
He likes to have 3 receivers on the field, but is he better off with Godwin, Evans, Gage, or Godwin, Evans, Otten?
He's better off with Godwin, Evans, Julio, and more protection. And so I think that's what matters the most for him. So I don't care. I mean, you could say that you could have 2 schmucks running routes for him. If he's on his back, he's not going to do any help. So he'd much rather have protection.
Maybe they use more 2 tight end personnel because they're taking on the Niners and that pass rush is dangerous, and that puts Otten on the field more with Brady. Maybe it happens.
All right. Brock Purdy is a sit, and I'm going to give you a bunch of reasons to sit Christian McCaffrey just for fun. Ready? He is averaging only 4.1 yards per carry with San Francisco. Perhaps he's just learning the system and the blocking scheme and all that. The Bucs allow 3.6 yards per carry to running backs with Akeem Hicks on the field. 4.6 yards per carry to running backs with Hicks off the field. He will be on the field for this game. The Bucs allow the 2nd fewest receiving yards to running backs. McCaffrey has faced 5 opponents that are standouts in that category in terms of receiving yards allowed to running backs. He's averaging 27.8 receiving yards per game in those 5 games. In the other 7 games, McCaffrey is averaging 60 receiving yards per game. So he has not done well typically in those matchups against teams that do well against pass catching running backs. Therefore, Christian McCaffrey is a bust this week. Sit him in every league.
You've convinced me. I'm going to sit him for Dameon Pierce.
It's funny. This goes back to that theme of even the best running back in fantasy, arguably, gets one of the best run defenses this week. Christian McCaffrey could just be an ugly week for running backs, but of course you're starting him.
No, he's working the passing game to save him.
Exactly.
I know, but that just happens to be something that they're excellent at. I mean, excellent against pass catching running backs.
McCaffrey is an excellent pass catcher.
Alvin Kamara had 2 catches for 11 yards. Aaron Jones had 3 for 11.
I'm not phased in the least.
Okay. No, I'm just messing around. Rank the wide receivers in this game because we haven't talked about
Godwin, Debo, Evans, Ayuk.
I have the exact same order.
Why Debo? Is it just the ADOT thing, like the downfield?
I think the easiest way for Brock Purdy and for Kyle Shanahan to make things easy on Brock Purdy is a lot of underneath throws, and that's not where Ayuk thrives. I think we'll see, certainly a lot of chances for Debo, and I still think, especially in a game like this, with the number 2 running back situation still unsettled. I know Jordan Mason operated as that guy and ran well, but I think that's how you manufacture touches for Debo is you put him more in a running back spot.
Okay, let's finish this game here with George Kittle. This game's taking a long time. George Kittle, Dave, you have him higher than Jamie.
I do.
In 3rd?
I bet that they connect this week. There were times where Purdy was literally looking at George Kittle as he was open running down the field and didn't fire. So that just could have been a byproduct of Purdy not wanting to make a mistake. That's why he threw short a lot last week. I'm kind of optimistic that he'll take some shots to Kittle again this week, and that Kittle can work as not just a short area target for him, but also as someone that he can gain 15+ yards with. I really thought Purdy played well, especially in the second half.
Really? Because, I mean, I didn't watch all the throws, but on Monday's show, Jacob Gibbs mentioned his off-target rate was very high.
It was way higher in the first half than the second half.
Okay, but this is a guy who was throwing, to Christian McCaffrey the whole day. He shouldn't have had a high off-target rate. His ADOT was really low, so that's a bad combination.
Yes. No, the ADOT is
he's
if
got
you're starting Kittle or any of the
off.
receivers, you're hoping that the ADOT goes up and that you're hoping that the accuracy is a little bit better. And it was, at least the accuracy was better in the second half.
All right. Yeah, we won't judge him too harshly on his first game, but he's the last pick in the draft. And
first game might be better than the second game, though, because now there's tape on him.
And a much better defense. Jamie, just real quick, who would you start over George Kittle?
In non-PPR, probably the craziest name would be Hunter Henry, just because of the matchup. I think there's a better chance that Henry scores. In all formats, I would start Dulcich over him.
Speaking of Hunter Henry, here we go. New England is at Arizona. Most offenses seem to do pretty well against most good offenses seem to do pretty well against New England.
Oh, I thought you said against Cardinals.
The Cardinals are, I think, a good offense. Yeah, New England is such a Jekyll and Hyde team. Anyway, if we could probably do this game pretty quickly, right? Sit Mac Jones, Ramondre Stevenson, hooray. Ramondre Stevenson. Jacoby Myers, if he plays, starter sit.
He'll be a number 3 receiver like he always is, PPR.
Yep, PPR only.
Okay, so Mike Evans or Jacoby Myers?
Evans.
I don't think there's any way he's playing. Although, I mean, he has a
He's not in the protocol, though. That's the thing.
He's not? He missed practice.
No, he's got a head injury.
Okay.
Like a bear took a bite out of the side of his head.
He has a longer window to get healthy because he got hurt on a Thursday instead of a Sunday. And now he plays on a Monday. Okay.
Unless I'm wrong. I just didn't see him in the protocol. I think he's just listing him as head injury.
Okay. No, no, I'm seeing he is in the concussion protocol.
Okay, then yeah, bad news.
Probably not playing. All right, Hunter Henry is the most interesting Patriot here. Jamie just said he'd start him over George Kittle in non-PPR. Dave, you have him 10th. It's an easy sell here, but talk about Hunter Henry and who you would start him over.
Well, the sell is that the matchup is outstanding. And it just goes without saying because the Cardinals have been so bad against tight ends this year. You just look and see it's 11 or more half PPR point tight end production in 4 of the past 6 games and some huge games allowed. If there's no Jacoby Myers, then it's easy for Henry to potentially step up and be a short area target for Mac Jones. Short area targets tend to do better against the Cardinals than downfield targets. It's part of the reason why I kind of like Jones as a bye week quarterback. I've got him ranked in my top 20. So I'm not adverse to him. If you're starting Henry, you're starting him for the stat, not necessarily because of what he's been doing from game to game.
They've allowed 7 touchdowns to tight ends in the last 4 games. That's insane.
Pretty insane.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, they're so bad. Okay, Kyler, we'll go to Kyler Murray here. He felt a little bit low in your rankings. It's 9th for Jamie, 7th for Dave, 8th for Heath. I guess it's not that. 9th feels a little bit low. I don't know.
Yeah, I should probably adjust that, but I think it's there's some decent quarterback plays this week. I think Geno's in a better spot. The one I struggle with is Tua. Just because of him being a little bit banged up. And they can run on the Chargers if they decide to. But I think you look at Cousins. I think there's a higher ceiling for him this week, and Goff might have a higher ceiling this week.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's like a top 10 that's very appealing. And then 11 is Derek Carr for everybody. So those 10 guys are going to do better than him. So start Kyler Murray. All right, how do you feel about James Conner? Because he has been on fire lately. He's playing almost every snap. The Patriots, are going to be one of the tougher matchups. Like 2 weeks ago, he faced San Francisco. And he did score 13.4 PPR fantasy points. He had 14 carries for 42 yards, 2 catches for 12 yards, but of course he scored the touchdown. So New England's not quite San Francisco, but they're not a layup. Dave, how do you feel about James Conner this week?
Too much work, potential to score each week, and I'm rolling with him. To me, he's a must-start number 2 fantasy running back.
DeAndre Swift or James Conner?
Swift.
Dalvin Cook or James Conner?
Cook.
Conner.
Travis Etienne or James Conner?
Conner.
Okay. Start DeAndre Hopkins. You said Marquise Brown. I think we said was what, number 3 receiver.
I think he's in
Number
that
2 for me.
right. Yeah, he's a high end 3 for me.
Okay. And then let's say Rondale Moore is out, which looks like it'll be the case, but they have more practice time than the other teams. This is the Monday night game. Do you have any interest in Greg Dortch? Do you have any interest in Dortch or Rondale Moore, assuming that's the slot guy? Incredibly valuable role. Do you have any interest in those guys, Jamie?
Yeah, like I said, I think you could be looking at 6 to 7 targets. I think there's an opportunity here based on what we've seen. Now, we haven't seen it with these 2 guys on the field in terms of Hopkins and Brown, but we also haven't seen how all 3 would operate without the tight end because Zach Ertz hasn't been there. So there's still a lot of moving parts to what this Cardinals offense will look like. And so getting one of the 2 guys back, you would prefer it to be Rondale Moore because he's the more talented of the 2. But again, you've seen what Kyler Murray has done with this position. And so will that be the same carryover when everybody's healthy? It's not a slam dunk. It's not in any situation where you say, okay, I feel like this is going to be a guaranteed 12 to 13 PPR points, which is basically what that position has averaged, whether it was Dortch early or, Rondale in the middle before we got, Hopkins back and Brown went out. But again, I think, James Conner's numbers aren't going to be pretty. So, you're talking maybe 15 carries at most. He's going to be the only running back really that touches the ball. So you're looking at a lot of throwing from Kyler Murray and a lot of opportunities for these guys. So high-end number 4, low-end number 3 type of receiver, better in PPR than non. And I think he's worth a gamble if you are stuck. Like for me, for example, I just picked him up in a league where I don't have Pittman and my other receivers are a mess. So he's my 3rd receiver for this week.
Dortch, okay. Would you start Marquise Brown or Mike Williams?
I've got him back-to-back Brown higher.
Marquise Brown, or how about Leonard Fournette?
Brown.
Okay. Sit Trey McBride, and if you're desperate for a DST, the Cardinals. You could do worse than the Cardinals. They're about 13th or so. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, Houston at Dallas. I mean, we know who's going to win, but can you trust Dak Prescott? He's probably going to play 2 possessions, and then it's going to be over. We'll talk about the Cowboys passing game, a little bit more on Dameon Pierce when we come back on Fantasy Football Today. We are back. That was our last break. Nothing but football from here on out. Maybe we'll sprinkle in some movies or TV shows or something. Houston's at Dallas. All right, so I don't want to just redo this segment. Go back to the 1 question for each game segment. Check the time codes. But I talked about Dameon Pierce and all of the blowout losses. And also, he's just not running that well lately. So he has 1 carry longer than 13 yards in his last 4 games. That's 60 carries. So you're going to try to sit Dameon Pierce. Now over to the Cowboys side. Jamie, how do you feel about the Cowboys, specifically Dak Prescott? I mean, I know we're going to love the running backs, but obviously I get what the fear is with Prescott. He just won't have to throw much, and the Texans are 5th best against quarterbacks. But yeah, give me the passing game thoughts there.
I mean, I think, barring some big plays, it's probably going to be around a low 200-yard day for him. Probably a couple of touchdowns, not a turnover to worry about unless he makes a bad mistake. But, a 202 type of game is certainly within the offering here because, like you said, he's probably not going to have to do very much. So it's a little concerning, if you're counting on Dak to win your week. Now, granted, there's always the ability for them to just say, we're going to do what we want to because they can. And I think we've said this time and time again, the Texans pass defense, while the numbers are great, I think it's somewhat overrated. So, I wouldn't necessarily run from Dak Prescott and go to pick up somebody in a waiver wire. If you have the ability to get Goff still, that might not be a bad pivot play just if you need to maximize your points. But I'm not starting, Huntley over him. I'm not starting Purdy over him. I'm not starting those type of guys over Dak Prescott by any stretch. So I think Dak's a low-end starter. CeeDee Lamb, you're going to start just based on what his upside always is. Gallup's more of a desperation number 3 receiver, and Schultz is a tight end with a pulse. So, that could be the other touchdown that he gets. So, I think it's just not a big ceiling coming for Dak Prescott because this does feel like a game where both Zeke and Pollard can get 200 yards if they wanted to.
Yeah, I said 5th best. The Texans are actually 3rd best against quarterbacks. And I think you saw, I remember this setup going into the Dolphins game, right? It was like, well, is Tua going to be good? Tua ended up scoring only 17 fantasy points, but he shredded them. and then he left.
With a quarter.
But
and a
it's
half to play.
it's also like what happened. It's 2 weeks in a row now where there's a defensive score. Last week there was 3, non-offensive scores.
Right.
And those are the things that are leading to these blowouts and leading to their offenses not having to do very much. Like you could, if you really wanted to be creative and try to take a shot at the million, play Cooper Rush and see what happens. Because he may come in the second half and have some numbers in this game. That's the algorithm to find a way to win some of these tournaments.
Is it Cooper Rush or is it Malik Davis?
It could be Malik Davis too. Yeah, it's a good call.
Yeah, could be him too. The first thought I had was, is there anything the Cowboys need to work on offensively? Something that they want to get better at? Is there a player that they want to get going in the right direction? And Prescott's been playing great. Gallup just had a 2-touchdown game. Schultz has been good. I'm thinking the only thing that they might want to work on if he's active is Tyron Smith getting back into the swing of things at left tackle. And I don't know how much they want to put him out there. So this could end up very much being like that Dolphins game, like you said, Adam.
Yeah, I think the good news for Prescott is that he's producing basically on a weekly basis with 30 or fewer pass attempts. He's come back. He's played 6 games. The Cowboys are averaging 35 points per game without the defensive touchdowns. That's just their offensive production. And they're basically the best offense in football since they've come back. And he's thrown 30 or fewer passes in 5 of those 6 games. He's just been remarkably efficient. So somebody asked us in the chat, who would you start over Dak Prescott? So Goff and Cousins?
Yes.
It's kind of the obvious names. It's like Tua, other than those guys. Goff and Cousins, Tua, Herbert, and then obviously Mahomes and Allen and Geno Smith, yeah. But then after that, guys like Derek Carr was behind him, Trevor Lawrence, Tom Brady, etc. Dak is ahead of those guys. All right, Pollard and Zeke, with all the heebie-jeebies that we're getting at running back this week, are you getting them at all with these guys?
Oh, we love these guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like 5.
They're both top 12 for me.
Yep.
Okay. CD
Zeke
Lamb,
over Pollard in non-PPR.
Michael Gallup or Mike Evans?
Evans.
Evans. See, what Dave was talking about, the only thing that stands out there is you noticed a significant uptick in production for Gallup for the last 2 games. Maybe just, coinciding with the Odell Beckham rumors. So spike in targets the last 2 weeks, finding the end zone twice last week. I'm sure they're all saying the right things about Beckham, but I wonder if there was a private conversation between Gallup and Dak saying, you know what, even if he comes, you're still my guy. You're still the number 2 receiver on this team. And I'm going to make sure everybody knows that. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's maybe another end zone target or 2 for him.
Yeah, and honestly, it's also coinciding with Chris Godwin getting good, and they both tore their ACLs around the same time, I'd say. So it could just be a health thing for Michael Gallup. So encouraging stuff there. He is 79% rostered, so you can't really stash him. But he's a number 3, maybe even number 4 wide receiver. It's just, first of all, they allow the 5th fewest fantasy points to receivers, Houston, and then obviously all the things we talked about with Prescott.
Yep.
Okay, Dalton Schultz is top 5 in both formats. He's got 3 straight games of 22 to 33 yards, but he is the preferred end zone target. 6 end zone targets in 7 games with Dak Prescott. That's huge. There's not much else to say there. You guys said you'd start Hawkinson over him. You wouldn't start Hunter Henry over Dalton Schultz, right?
No, Schultz is 4th for me.
Schultz or Kittle?
Kittle.
Okay. All right. But they're close. And the Dallas DST is about 15th this week. LOL. They're first. Okay. Philadelphia at the Giants. Out of the game. The Eagles have allowed more than 69 receiving yards to only 5 receivers all year. 2 of them were the same guy, Terry McLaurin. And that's despite 16 wide receivers having 7 or more targets. So I know you guys don't love Darius Slayton, but he's playing pretty well lately. And I think the Giants are going to have to throw a lot. I don't understand the spread at all. I don't know how it started as a 5.5 point spread, got bet up to 7. That's where I saw it last. I mean, this feels like a 15-point game to me. I don't know how you guys feel, but I do think a lot of Daniel Jones pass attempts are coming. So Slayton is one of the only tough calls in this game. Jamie, how do you feel about it? I know we asked Slayton earlier, but give me your thoughts, your updated thoughts.
I mean, just first on the game, let's give the Giants some credit, despite the fact that things have been falling apart. They hang around. That's Brian Daboll. That's Wink Martindale. Their defense has found a way to stay competitive, and certainly their offense has done a good job. So I don't know if they're going to get blown out.
They suck.
But this feels like a game where the Eagles should be able to do whatever they want to offensively. Giants, I think, you're starting Barkley and that's it.
And Barkley, he gives me the heebie-jeebies. He is just being saved by touchdowns. The Eagles' run defense has been a lot better over the last 3 or 4 games. Barkley, it doesn't matter who he's facing. He's running the ball like crap. I can't sit here and say it's his fault. I don't know. I just know that it's happening again. He is extremely inefficient. I love the fact that he's getting a lot of targets lately. They've been losing games and he's getting, like 5, 6, 7 targets in these losses lately. So that should save you there. I guess
and Jones is running. I mean, look, 71 yards rushing last week, so he's going to probably use his legs in this matchup too.
Guess where Daniel Jones ranks per game in 4-point and 6-point per passing touchdown leagues this year?
4-point, I would say 11.
12.
6-point, probably 17.
14th. Surprising. All right, on the other side of the ball, Dave, Hurts, start. Brown, start. Stoll, sit. Devontae Smith and Miles Sanders. Like them, love them, gotta have them.
Gotta have them. Sanders especially if there's no Leonard Williams in the middle for that defense for the Giants. And Adoree Jackson continuing to be out. That's a problem for New York. And there's too much upside there for Devontae Smith. I felt the crunch at wide receiver with 6 teams on bye when it came to ranking him. And he's on the good side of my top 24 because of it.
The Giants secondary, look, they do usually hang around, but they're just so banged up right now. And they just, their secondary is depleted. It's really bad. It's a great matchup. And their run defense stinks anyway. And now Leonard Williams is probably out for this game. So I will say in half PPR, Miles Sanders is going to outscore Saquon Barkley. Bam.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What about Boston Scott, the giant killer?
The giant killer every freaking game. I probably not, but that would be hilarious if that happened.
Well, I mean, if you're counting on a blowout, Boston Scott probably scores because that means he's playing late in the game.
Look, I think the Titans are a better team than the Giants. And even though the Giants beat them in week 1, and what the Eagles did last week to the Titans, I mean, the Eagles were struggling a little bit, right? They lost to the Commanders. They won by 1 point against the Colts. They weren't even all that convincing in that Thursday game against the Texans. But if they play like they played last week, it's going to be a runaway. And this is not me hating on the Giants. I think the Eagles are fantastic. They're just phenomenal. All right, that's it for this game. Eagles DST as they start. Last game, Carolina at Seattle. Stat of the game: the Seahawks have a. What happened?
I just found an ugly stat on Saquon.
Go ahead.
He's 34th among qualifying running backs. These are running backs with at least 100 rushes in percentage of runs 5 or more yards this year.
How many running backs?
34th out of 38. He is ahead of McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, James Robinson, and Kenneth Walker. Weird names to have.
Well, so yeah, because there are some, and I've been looking at these types of things, and I find some running back profiles, and 2 guys that come to mind are Ken Walker and Travis Etienne. And these are guys that have a lot of carries for less than 5 yards or 0 or negative yards, but also a lot of explosive carries. And it's fine to be that kind of guy, but the problem for Barkley is the explosiveness is just not there right now. Or I shouldn't say the explosiveness is not there. I'm sure he still has it. We haven't seen it, right? We haven't.
He's 13th in explosive play rate. Those are runs of 12 or more yards. Kenneth Walker is 2nd with 13%.
Right. But if you look at Barkley and you go his last 4 or 5 games, I bet he's not even close to that. I bet he's,
Want me to tell you?
Yeah, you're going to have to lower the threshold. It's not going to be 100 carries, but yes, you can tell me where he is. I think that's dropped off quite a bit. While you do that, Carolina's at Seattle, and the Seahawks have allowed 13.6 or more PPR fantasy points to 6 wide receivers in their last 4 games. Rondale Moore, DeAndre Hopkins, Chris Godwin, Julio Jones, Mac Hollins, and Devontae Adams. It's interesting, Jamie. They do pretty well against stud wide receivers, especially the ones that line up at Tariq Woolen's side a lot, like Devontae Adams and DeAndre Hopkins. They did a really good job against them. But they struggled against Julio Jones and Mac Hollins and Rondale Moore. So You already talked about DJ Moore. You think he could be what, like in the 13-ish point range?
I think so. I think it's a matter of how many targets he's going to see. So if they're running the ball with success, and you can run on Seattle, that's certainly been proven. So if they're running the ball with success, then I think it's going to be a little bit of a challenge for them to get those targets because they'll stay in the game with their backfield. But if they are chasing points, which you could see happening here because their secondary is a mess and the Seattle passing game is certainly very formidable, then I think it could be a little bit of a boost for Sam Darnold throwing and DJ Moore being the primary beneficiary of that. So I think he's on the cusp of a number 2, number 3 receiver, similar in the same type of range like a Mike Evans, like a Deebo Samuel, like Gabe Davis, Juju Smith-Schuster, guys you have question marks on, but, certainly can see the upside. And so if you've been starting DJ Moore, then I think you just continue to roll with him. If you've been sitting DJ Moore and you have better options, it's easy to get away from him because you've seen the majority of the season. So I don't think Sam Darnold is just the complete answer, but clearly of the last 2 seasons, which quarterback has he been the best with? It's been Sam Darnold.
You had your updated stat, Dave?
Yeah, it's really not that different from season long. Past 4 games, his 5-yard rate, just to simplify it, is 27.8%. That is 26 out of 28 qualifiers being 50 rushes or more in the last 5 weeks. So it's pretty low.
Well, no, I meant the 12 the explosive rate, the 12-yard carry.
He's actually 8th there, 7.6%.
Really? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I wonder what that's like with Neil and Feliciano.
Well, Neil's only played one of those games. Okay.
Right.
I can guarantee you, I know for a fact that the long runs have not been there, right? The breakaway runs, the 25 to 30 to 50.
No, the appeal with Saquon is that he's an every down back, 20 touch potential, goal line potential.
Yep. Scores a lot.
The efficiency could be better.
Now, in this weird running back week, how do you feel about Deontay Foreman, assuming he plays? Is he just an easy call?
I think so.
You look at his numbers since McCaffrey's been traded. It's been pretty fantastic. 4 of 7 games over 100 yards rushing. It's been, nice to see that they've used him this way. You'd like to see a little bit more work in the passing game, but that's probably not going to happen. So Seattle's been atrocious.
Yeah.
The last 3 weeks have just been absolutely abysmal. Most of that was Josh Jacobs, but still, there's a lot to like about where this team is at. Giving up 2 rushing touchdowns and 61 yards rushing to Cam Akers
last week, right? They actually did a better job against Akers after the first quarter.
And then you look at what the 2 Panthers guys did against the Broncos the last time they played. They 180 yards rushing for those 2 guys.
Yeah, as long as they're competitive, he's going to get a ton of carries.
I think so. I think he's gone over 110 yards each time he's had 15 carries this year.
Right, he's just had these 2 terrible games. One was against the Ravens. One was that Bengals game where they were trailing 35-0 at halftime.
Right.
That might have been the one I was thinking of, 35-0 at halftime thing. So you have to accept the downside, but bottom line is he's had 6 games without McCaffrey. He's over 113 rushing yards in 4 of them. That's incredible. All right, Seattle. We love Geno Smith. Very few quarterbacks were starting over him this week. Would you start Geno Smith or Josh Allen?
I was asked that on a radio show, and one of the hosts said, "Oh, that's such a dumb question," because they think it's obvious that Allen's the answer. I'm not sure that that's so obvious anymore. Geno, I have Allen 1 spot higher, but I can't sit here and say I'm going to keep it that way through Friday and Saturday. I might move Geno ahead.
Allen.
And Dave, you have Tua ahead of Geno. Jamie, you have Geno 1 spot ahead of Tua, but Geno is top 6 for everyone. Start him, start Metcalf and Lockett. If Ken Walker plays, Jamie, where do you think you'd settle on Ken Walker?
I would settle on Ken Walker as top 15.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got to be a little bit concerned that he's not 100%. Give the Panthers run defense credit. They've been pretty good all season long. So I think you take out the Mixon game and it looks a lot different from the season long numbers. So Walker, and this kind of goes back to whoever the running back is for Seattle, which is why I think the one in the passing game matters more. They've struggled to run the ball, and that's kind of saved Walker a little bit, is work in the passing game. The fact that he's found the end zone. You go back to prior to last week, he had not been good. You've mentioned this a lot, Adam, that he's been struggling, just to run the ball. And that speaks, I think, to the team. But Walker, I think if he's there, you trust him. If it's not Walker, then again, I'll lean more toward Homer because I think that's his best asset.
And I think it's a pretty favorable matchup, all things considered. And yes, the Mixon game is included in this, but the past 5 games, 5.4 yards per carry allowed, 4 rushing touchdowns allowed to running backs. So Carolina's run defense is vulnerable.
Yeah, they're kind of a hit or miss defense, actually. And they've been worse in the passing game, worse pass defense since they lost their top cornerback a few weeks ago, Dante Jackson. So that should favor Metcalf and Lockett. Noah Fant, we don't. Oh, wait, sorry. Last question on Walker. If Walker plays and Foreman plays, which running back would you rather have?
Foreman.
Noah Fant, we don't talk about too much, but if we're expecting more
Walker and PPR, though.
Walker and PPR. If we're expecting more pass attempts for Geno Smith, do you think Noah Fant, he's third on the team in targets, do you think he benefits from this and actually becomes someone that we could stream?
I think it's a little bit better, easier to trust him if Will Dissly doesn't play too. He's dealing with a calf injury.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Fant's in play here. It's not horrendous to say he can be in that group of Evan Ingram and Jordan Akins and Okonkwo and these guys that you could see a path to success, but you could also see some significant pitfalls because of how they've played the majority of the season. So low end starter, sure. If you're desperate, I think it's not a bad pivot play.
If you're playing the fantasy points game, Carolina's only allowed 3 tight ends to get more than 8.5 half PPR points against them all year.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So that's a strike against. You're starting Fant PPR hoping for 8 points, not 11.
Well, that's going to do it for today's show. I'm going to play us out with some new outro music. We're out of here for today, everybody. Dave has gotten too smart for us.
You screwed up.
It wasn't. I don't think it was going to work. But you're right. I didn't do it right.
If you did it the way I told you to do it, we would have got him.
What was the way to do it? Hold on, I want to know this.
I said to him, you can't go right to the game if we get into an argument. You have to at least let me go for a little bit. You guys get talking. You got to let Dave feel more comfortable that he's just tailing the show because we really got in a fight, and I'm not coming back.
Well, I don't understand why he's yelling at you to look at the camera when for the last 4 years you haven't looked at the camera.
Well,
why is this a thing now?
Okay, maybe I don't know. I didn't know that was a thing. I don't know. All right, it's okay. It's okay. So anyway, oh yeah, we'll go out on this. Mailbag.
2 o'clock today?
Updates. What, buddy?
2 o'clock?
2 o'clock mailbag. Why did I just call Jamie buddy? That was weird. A strange ending to a strange show, and we'll talk to you on the mailbag. And goodbye. I just need to end this fun. Later.